I totally lied at the end of the last lecture. We're going to talk about shape, not line. We'll get the line next time. What I want to focus most on when we're talking about shape is the idea of the figure-ground relationship. And this is a property of perception in which there's a tendency to see parts of a visual field as a solid, well-defined object, and then everything else is a less distinct background. This again is just in evolutionary terms a useful way of and an efficient way of parsing out the visual information in front of you. Remember, your fovea can only pick up so much information, and your brain can really only process so much information at one time. So you're going to tend to foreground the object that you deem is important and background everything else. So like here we've got this monkey out in the jungle. The leaves in the tree is not so interesting to us when we're walking around in the jungle. The creature that we either want to kill and eat or are worried that it might kill and eat us is important. So what happens is your brain just creates a difference between the two things mentally. It will create the figure or the positive shape, the positive space, which is the thing that you're paying attention to, and then it will ground or create negative space, negative shape everywhere else. Usually the negative space is in the background and the figure is in the foreground, but like in this shape of the monkey, some of what we're ignoring is actually in front of the monkey and some is what is behind the monkey. And so you'll see some of these leaves get grounded as well. So ground doesn't necessarily mean background. And you create basically like a silhouette of the object. Mentally, you're just saying this is the important thing that I'm paying attention to and I'm ignoring everything else. And this happens when I watch students draw. They'll have, like a big vase with a flower in it and a cup in front of it overlapping it. And they won't even draw the cup. They're focused on the vase so much that they don't draw it. So it's an attention span thing that goes on with us. And again, it's for maximizing the brain power that we're using at any given time. Now you'll have artists like Frank Miller who did the Sin City comics that they made the movie out of, and they use this effect in the movie too, who will develop a style around this. So when Frank Miller is drawing an image like this, he's not doing an outline first. And when I talk about the tools that we're using, I'll talk about this as well. He's not doing an outline first and then like outlining these characters and then filling in the shapes. What he's doing is he's going like shape by shape by shape by shape and filling those in. This is important to how we approach this assignment where we're going to be drawing negative space, because I'm also trying to get you to see area first, shape first, rather than stuff. Like, I'm not too worried that you see these people kissing. I'm more worried that you see these shapes here. So if I was drawing this area here, I wouldn't outline this whole area and draw those in. I would take my tool and draw a triangle here, draw this shape here, then draw this shape here, and so forth, and keep seeing how the shapes relate to each other. When you do that, then eventually what's left in the white, what's left would be like the positive shape. So we'll be drawing the negative shape. Notice that when you do it this way, you don't get a line in between. So there's not a line telling me whether these figures are behind the railing or in front of it. Like if they're behind the railing, you would put like a black line here to separate them out. If they're in front of it, the black line would go around here. And we don't have that. So when you're doing these negative space drawings, it's really important that if two objects overlap, you just let the white bleed into the white. You're only coloring in the spaces in between and around the objects, the holes in the image. This is also very important just for composition, like we talked about last time, the sense of balance. Once you have a picture plane, and all of your drawings should always exist within a picture plane, it should always have a boundary around it, usually a rectangle. Even the things that we're ignoring create a shape in the space that affect the balance of it. So here you see one of Hokusai's 36 views of Mount Fuji, and you have the wave and all of the people in the boat and the mountain are the positive shape. They're the figure that we're paying attention to. But the ground, the negative shape here, takes up about half of the painting, and it's just a reverse of the shape of the wave. So you get this yin-yang symbol built into the composition here. And he's using that negative space to help generate meaning and generate content. But even if he's not doing that, it's just as important to the set of shapes and the set of balance that's in the image. So we really need to develop this awareness of shape. When I was talking about pattern, I hinted at the idea of figure ground reversal. This is a psychological phenomenon in which a viewer's attention switches what counts as figure and what counts as ground. So in an illusion like this, if you're looking at the black as the figure and the white as the ground, we're going to be doing black for negative space, but that's not, you don't have to do that. For our drawings, we're going to. But here, at first, we can see black is the figure and white is the ground. So positive space is black, negative space is white. If you see it that way, you'll see two faces. If you see the white as the positive shape, as the figure, and the black as the ground, like what we'll be doing in class, the negative space is black, then you'll see like this chalice type of cup with, here's the body of the cup, and here is like the part that you would grab onto. Now, it's almost, if not completely impossible to see both at once. Your brain's going to choose one or the other. You can flip-flop back and forth between them very quickly, but you can't hold both at once. Your brain needs to have one be ground and one be figure. It's very, very difficult to see this as like, you would have to see it as two faces pushing a cup in between them to make this thing totally turn into all figure, all positive shape. If you got more sophisticated with this, you could start to do what's called integration, and that's where you could stack levels of figure and ground on top of each other, and then some of what's figure and some of what's ground will integrate into each other. So you'll see an image here like this drawing by Anders Nilsson. At first you start out with the black being the figure and the white being the ground, and then the white turns into the figure against the black ground here, and then the black figure and the black ground merge into each other, so they integrate. You can have more or less of this in a drawing, especially if you're starting to get like value and shading involved. You can see these three images by George Seurat. You'll have like here, where it's pretty much black figure, white ground, a little bit integration in the shadows at the bottom. In this middle one, it's more complicated, where the background goes from black to white. So you have black to white ground, and then you have black to white figure up on top. And so you have this little rhythm of like light edge against the dark edge, and then again like light ground against dark figure, and then light figure against dark ground, and it creates a nice rhythm. And then this drawing of his mother here has even more complications in terms of the darks and the lights bleeding in and out of each other, and that's an effect called sfumato, and we'll pick up looking at that much later in the semester. One of the reasons we're going to be working on this is because I want you to start to see shape just as shape. A lot of us, when we work with shape, we tend to draw an outline first. So that would be like a perimeter first way of seeing shape. That's like building up a fence and then filling it with dirt to create like the area. For this assignment, I really want us to focus on area first, shape first, rather than line and perimeter first. So we'll have, like, imagine that instead of building a fence and filling it with dirt, we just start piling up dirt until we create the perimeter that we want. And you'll see in the demo I do with the tools that that's part of how we're approaching this. So this student example is a pretty good example. They did not go around and outline this chair first. What they did is they just looked at area first and shape by shape. So they would have colored in this shape first maybe, and then just figured out, okay, and this is flat screen stuff, right? When we talk about flat screen, these are just shapes on a flat screen. This whole relationship of all the outline of the chair and everything is very difficult to capture all at once. But any of these shapes individually are fairly simple. So we're going to focus on them one at a time, and then I just pay attention to, as I move to the next shape, the relationship between this shape and that shape. I don't need to worry about all of the outline of it yet. So get that shape in there, then I would get that. Then I would get that little triangle and then those dots and move like that. So when you're working on these images, that's how I want you to work on it. I don't want you to sketch it out first. You just go straight to pen and then watch the demo for how I want you to use the pen. Okay, that's what this assignment will be about negative space.